What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So right now, many Americans are worried, and for good reason. Right now, Congress does not understand the best way to do their job, and they definitely cannot comprehend where many Americans currently stand, with having limited amounts of money, limited amounts of food, and no real answer from our government. Well, right now, multiple Democrats and progressives have a plan, and this plan is something that must be considered. There was a lot of things going on with the stimulus package at this point. There's a lot of talk about COVID relief, getting the economic recovery plan, so much. However, right now, what we are hearing is that this group of Democrats and progressives are currently trying to do whatever they can and quickly provide for the American people. Keyword is quickly. President Biden says immediately, but this group says quickly, and here's the reason why. Right now, we know that the House will not be in session for the next 2 weeks. However, they will be working within the committees trying to put together the next $1.9 trillion stimulus package, which will not be any type of bipartisan package. What we know is that the Senate, they will be working on former President Trump's impeachment hearing this week, and then they will be going on recess from February 13th through February 21st. This means that the House committees need to work fast in order to provide something. So then once the Senate comes back on February 22nd, hopefully we can move forward with this new $1.9 trillion stimulus package. But here's the reason why Democrats and this group of progressives are currently fighting. Right now, what we are hearing is that the expected legislation is supposed to be drafted using the 2019 federal income tax numbers. What this means is that even if you made a lot of money in 2019, but you were fired, let go, got a pay decrease, or your hours were decreased in any way, this is going to be the problem because you may not be eligible for your next stimulus check, simply because if they go off of 2019 numbers. Now, here's the other issue, and you're going to see the problem. What many people are worried about is, and this is exactly what I told many people yesterday as well, is if you made more than let's say $100,000, you and your spouse made more than $100,000 in 2020, and you are worried that you might not get a stimulus check, here's what you have to do. Just don't file your federal income taxes until after this bill is passed. Because chances are what's going to happen is they are going to use 2019 and 2020 federal income tax numbers. And whichever one is the newest, so if 2020 you file that, that's the number they're going to go off of. But if you don't file and you wait, they will go off of 2019. But here's the issue. A lot of people will not even file their federal income taxes simply because they want to ensure they get a $1,400 stimulus check. We were promised by Democrats and President Biden that we will see if we nominate and we push through the Democratic senators in Georgia, Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, we would see $2,000 stimulus checks immediately. President Biden has reiterated this multiple times. However, he's also stated just yesterday, we will be providing a $1,400 stimulus check. It will be $1,400, period. This is going along with the other $600. So it will be $600 that we should have already received and the additional $1,400, which, as many people have already stated, is already a lie. Now, what many economists have said is that the 19 million people that are on unemployment could have had a very high income in 2019, and that's great. But the pandemic didn't begin until 2020. So if we see people that were impacted in 2020, but yet we go off of 2019 tax returns, it makes absolutely no sense. How we are targeting these stimulus checks to many people is the wrong way to target them. We honestly should not be targeting these stimulus checks to anybody. Every single American should get a stimulus check. Chances are, yes, we will probably send out about, I don't remember the exact number, but 1% of the American people should not receive a stimulus check. But if we send out $426 billion or whatever it is, let's say $425 billion to people, that means like if 1% of those checks are going to people that shouldn't receive them, that means like $4.25 billion is going to people that shouldn't receive a stimulus check, I think we can sacrifice $4 billion for the good of the American people. I think that's a pretty simple compromise if we're trying to get everybody back to work. Now, here's what we know. It's because of all this fighting, because of all this, bickering of, who should be targeted, who should get a stimulus check and who should not, is because of this that Democrats are currently fighting against the clock and they're fighting against the system in order to provide for those that are currently in need. Now, here's what the current proposal is expected to look like. I know you've already heard this, but I want to reiterate this before we jump into what one of the Democratic representatives is currently saying, because she has some very good insights, and I want to bring that to you, and I'm going to bring that to you in just a minute. But here's what is expected, or what this proposal is expected to look like. First, individuals making less than $50,000 will get a full $1,400 stimulus check. If you make over that, that is when the phase-outs will begin. However, if one individual who has no children makes up to $78,000, they would still get a stimulus check in some form. However, it would most likely be phased out $5 for every $100 you make over. So it would technically be at zero once you make over $28,000 up and over that income limit. And for couples, if you make under $100,000, you receive the full $1,400 stimulus check. But using the same phase outs, couples that do have children would still receive a stimulus check, even if they make up to $150,000, possibly even $200,000, depending on how many children they have. For instance, if a couple who makes $100,000 and has 3 children, they would still get a $7,000 stimulus check. And yet many people are saying, no, if you make 6 figures, you should not get a stimulus check. But here's what you need to understand. If they go off of 2019 numbers, 6 figures in 2019, let's say you were something in construction, and then you also, let's say you owned a bakery, right? You had this business, you had a restaurant business. Well, the restaurant business is probably struggling or failed or just completely closed because you didn't really make any money because your restaurant was probably closed. But then you have, let's say, the other person that was in construction. Well, they made, a decent amount of money, but, they were kind of shut down on certain things because people didn't want them in their homes and things like that. So, yeah, let's say you made $100,000 in 2019. Great. But in 2020, you might be down to like $20,000, $30,000, maybe $40,000 between the two of you. Now, do you think those people should get a stimulus check? That's what Democrats and these progressives are currently talking about is yes. Absolutely yes. They should be getting a stimulus check because they were impacted due to COVID. So, here's the issue. And just think about this. If you had a high-paying job in 2019, just think about it, and then you were let go due to the virus that happened in 2020, do you think we should be going back to 2019 and looking at these numbers? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yet, if you earned over the income limits in 2019, you will be left out. You will be left out simply because you either didn't file your 2020 tax returns, which some people cannot do because they haven't received all their documents for, let's say, investments or, property taxes, their earned income, unemployment, whatever, right? If for whatever reason you have to wait until after February, 12th, which everybody has to because that's the first day we can file, but if we have to wait a month or 2 months, let's say we can't file until, let's say, the last week, the second week in April, which is actually the last week before the deadline of April 15th, then that's an issue. Well, even we have some people that are even talking about this. Even Pramila Jayapal, she's a representative in the House. She had something to say about this earlier today on Twitter. And she's not just talking about the 2019 income either. She's talking about a bunch of different things. So let's go over exactly what she had to say in her tweets. First, she says, targeting. Checks isn't just bad for people, it's bad policy too. It's not humane, it's not smart, it's not effective, and it's not even fiscally responsible. Not to mention that it doesn't meet the scale of this crisis. Help me spread the word about 4 obvious reasons why. Number 1, the stimulus checks often use 2019 tax data to measure someone's income. Millions lost their jobs in 2020 due to COVID. That's the whole point of this relief. And therefore, their income from 1 or 2 years ago is no longer accurate. They need help now, and we must provide it. Even if someone isn't one of the nearly 1 million additional people losing their job every single week, They likely lost hours and therefore had their overall income significantly reduced. By targeting, we cut out people who are desperately in need of help. Number 2, the data from people who filed for unemployment shows that more than 20% of those earning between 50K and 70K were still food insecure. That's up 16% from 2019, and it's why food banks have such long lines. We need to put money in their pockets so they can feed their family. Number 3, only 24% of those who lost work have received unemployment. Why? Because many don't qualify. Who? Parents who stayed home for children, people who didn't feel safe going to work, young adults who didn't have a job. Survival checks are their only lifeline. Don't take it away. Number 4, there are massive racial and ethnic disparities in all of this. Targeting further increases those disparities and will further increase income inequality. She ends by stating, Democrats should not be the party that cuts survival checks. People need money in their pockets and we must be the party that delivers it. If we're really the party that's for the people, then let's get it together and send those survival checks at the level we promised, no less. So as you can see, she is very adamant that we cannot target stimulus checks. They need to go to every single person, and yet we cannot figure out a way, Congress cannot figure out a way to provide stimulus checks to people that will not reflect their 2019 federal tax income. Because right now, what I can tell you is I know many people personally that have had great incomes in 2019, and in 2020, they have seen a fraction of that. They have seen maybe a quarter of their 2019 income simply because of where they worked, simply because of where they lived. Maybe they lived in California and saw a huge decrease in hours and pay, and then their business was ultimately closed due to the current levels of the pandemic. So right now it's a big issue. But what I can tell you is that targeting right now is going to be the center of this discussion. Who is going to get a stimulus check? Because this is over $400 billion that's going out to the American people. Who is going to get a stimulus check? We've already targeted people in certain ways for direct payments, but that's through unemployment. That's much easier. That's easier to be done. However, stimulus checks are one of those things that's going to be a very, it's a hotly debated battle right now, because this is something that Republicans are saying, no, we do not want somebody that earns six figures getting a $1,400 stimulus check. But yet, some people that earned six figures in 2019 may not receive a six-figure income or salary in 2020. So again, like I said, this is going to be a hotly contested debate. And chances are we will be going back and forth in the negotiation and this discussion. Because I can tell you right now, it's not just Republicans. Some Democrats are against people that make over six figures receiving a stimulus check. Now, yes, they probably shouldn't receive a stimulus check if they made six figures in 2020, but that doesn't actually reflect the current bill. What we are hearing is that the expected legislation is going to include 2019 and 2020. And if you don't file 2020 yet, they go off of 2019, which does not tell us who actually was, negatively and financially impacted due to COVID. So there's a lot of issues here, but I wanted to break down what's currently going on. I wanted to break down what Pramila Jayapal said, because what she said, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. But yet, this group of progressives look like they have two heads on their shoulders. Just the things that they say, the way that the Democrats and the Republicans look at the progressives who have good issues, who have good talking points. And you got the older people like Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi looking at them like, what are you talking about? You make absolutely no sense. But yet, they make 100% sense. It's absolutely correct. We cannot go off of 2019 numbers. We just can't do that. So, that's what we know right now. As always, I'm just trying to keep you updated on everything that's currently happening, trying to bring you up to speed on what we are hearing. So just want to thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next one.